Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, to another episode of S&M Radio. This episode puts us one past 14. There's a few people out there that will understand why I didn't say episode 15. It just so happens this episode we are going to be changing stuff up quite a bit, really. The biggest noticeable change that you're going to notice is you're not going to hear Miss Molly's voice, at least for a little bit. She's going to be taking a break for a while. So with that, we're going to be making some other changes as well. Kind of like when your favorite radio station that played classic rock all of a sudden decides that it's going to be playing new age rock over the weekend. Kind of like that a little bit. So we're getting away from the roots music scene somewhat. Not to downplay anybody else, but when me and Molly got into this a little bit over a year ago, there's a few people that know that the whole thing kind of actually started out as a joke, and we just jumped into it head first. Didn't really have a plan in place, really. I mean, we just kind of got some equipment and started recording it and just kind of copied what a bunch of other people were doing at the time that we knew. And so we, never really felt like it was something of our own. So now that Molly has taken a break for a while, I stepped back and put some thought into it and decided, well, if it's going to be solely up to me, then I think I'm going to do something that I want to do. So we're going to be changing the format a little bit. Slowly over the next couple of months, we're going to be getting away from, like I said, the music side of things and focusing more on a long form type of discussion type. It might be funny at times, it might be serious at times, but we're going to start that this month. But the name is still going to stay the same. It's still going to be S&M Radio. And to help me out with that for this month is a good buddy of mine, actually one of the people that I've probably known the longest of my life, a guy I met in third grade, way back in the day. And we still talk to this day. So please welcome everybody, my good friend Mark.
How's it going?
Hey man, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. We're going to talk about probably one of my favorite topics, especially around this time of year.
Yep. So last year we didn't really get a Halloween-themed episode out, but we did spend a little tiny bit of time back when me and Molly were still doing the Molly's movie reviews or whatever you want to call it. And she watched the original Halloween. So I thought, what better of an opportunity would we have than the actual first S&M Halloween special to devote to not only the very first Halloween movie, but all of them. So that's what we're going to talk about. We'll start with Halloween 1 from 1978 and work our way up to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 from a few years ago. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So Halloween 1 came out in 1978. Mark, I know that is like your all-time favorite, not just horror movie, but I believe all-time favorite movie.
I that's a hard one to say. Is it my all-time favorite movie? I'm probably gonna lean with yes. You've got films like the Star Wars trilogy, things like that kind of, it's hard to put Halloween above that, but it certainly would be my all-time favorite horror movie. But now that it's October, I guess I'm in that mood right now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's my all-time favorite movie. I've probably seen it more than probably any other movie since I watch it every year.
Yeah, and me and you actually was it last year or the year before, where we got to finally see it on the big screen? I can't remember.
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was the Yeah, for whatever reason, it was in the theaters. I remember that. But yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I'm the same way. I've seen it. Probably not every Halloween, but the last several years anyway, I've been watching uh, the majority of the Halloween movies during October. That one usually makes the cut.
Can you do you remember the time you first saw it? Do you remember the first time you ever sat down and actually saw that the original Halloween?
No.
Because I think I can remember the first time I saw it. I may have seen it one time prior, but probably my earliest memory was it was Halloween night. I was probably, and I kid you not, 4 or 5 years old, and we had just gotten back from trick or treating, and my grandma was over, and it was on TV, and I just remember sitting down, like on the sitting in front of the television. My grandma was behind me on the couch, and we had like I don't know ham sandwiches or something, and then all the candy that we had just collected, and yeah, I just remember watching it. I couldn't keep my eyes off it. It was just it blew me away back then, and ever since then I've seen it. I think every Halloween since.
Yeah, I would have to, if I had to guess, I would actually probably think that it was most likely at your house. Probably the first time that I saw it.
Probably.
So I don't know if I told the story in the air or not. Well, me and Mark went to grade school for a few years together. I moved into the town that we lived in at that time in third grade, and can't remember when, it must have been fourth grade when we really started to bond. And then used to go over to Mark's house. He lived 8 blocks away, I think it was. And in your basement, you used to have this room that had all these VHS recorded, edited for TV horror movies. And I remember we used to go over there and watch a whole bunch of stuff. I remember watching Friday the 13th over there, a whole bunch of the Howling movies, American Werewolf in London we used to watch. I don't know how many times we saw that movie.
Yeah, this was the time this was the time period what like must have been like the 87, 88 somewhere around there. And building a video library, this is before you would go out and purchase the videos. You had to actually tape them off a television. And I remember my parents were somewhat strict about horror movies. And the only ones they would let me watch were the ones that came on network TV, with all the gore and the booby shots removed. And so I had this huge collection of pretty much every horror movie that would come on TV, especially October. They would have so many of them. I just go out and pick up some blank VHS tapes and built my little library. Had like a virtual video store in the basement. Yep. Yes, I remember. And I remember that was fourth grade. I think it was when you and I really started hanging out. And we would walk home. I remember because my house was probably like 3 blocks away from the school.
Yeah, maybe.
And then we'd throw in like a Friday the 13th film or a Halloween film or Howling or whatever had just been on that weekend or whatever. And yeah, I think you were the only one that really was interested in it too. Like of all the kids we hung out with back then, I don't think there were many that were actually really into horror movies like you and I were.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, I don't remember the first time that I saw Halloween. I would assume it was probably at your house. I can actually remember the first time I saw. I remember the first time I saw like Texas Chainsaw. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Friday or Nightmare 2. I remember the first time I saw that. I remember the first time I ever saw a Friday the 13th movie that was at your house. It was part 3.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't remember the first time I saw Halloween. It would have had to have been at your house.
So then you probably saw the TV version because I had that. Yeah, I did have that on. I had that taped. I had the first 3 back then. And believe it or not, that was on beta. How's that for digging back a little bit?
I don't remember that, but so the first 2 movies We'll start with part one. And sorry, folks, if you haven't seen the Halloween movies, there's probably going to be plenty of spoilers. So if you've never seen one up to this point, and you're like, oh, I'm going to watch them this weekend, you might want to go ahead and turn this off now and pick it back up next week after you get done getting caught up with them. So the first one came out in '78. John Carpenter's. I guess it depends on who you ask. Some people think that there's a couple other movies that were the quintessential John Carpenter movie, but I think most people would agree that Halloween was probably the one. So it basically the original movie just really is the story of Michael Myers. There's really not a lot of background given on Michael Myers. The movie starts off with him as a kid, kills his sister, gets sent away for. I can't remember in the movie if they actually said if it was 15 years.
I don't know if they did. Did they actually give a date? How long he was sent away for? Yeah, I think it was 15 years.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if they ever actually explicitly said like 15 years later. Or maybe no. I think what they did was it was like I think it said Halloween 1963, and then it said Halloween 1978.
Yes, you're right.
I think that's the way they did it.
Right.
So, but anyway, Michael breaks out of the institution, makes his way back to Haddonfield, the fictitious town in Illinois, and goes on a killing spree. Really, the basis of the original movie was, I really think, what Carpenter was just trying to do was make something that was terrifying at the time. You had Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie as Laurie Strode. I believe that was her very first film appearance.
Yeah, I think it was. She was on a TV show prior to that.
And then you had the legendary Donald Pleasance as Dr. Sam Loomis in that as well. And those were really the three main characters, Laurie, Dr. Loomis, and Mike Myers, or Michael Myers, I should say, the Boogeyman, as they so eloquently refer to him as in the movie.
And that is exactly what he is.
Yeah, so I still think there's a lot of elements to that first Halloween movie that are still scary, I guess is the right word. Or maybe scary is not the right word, because it doesn't like scare me when I watch it. But I guess like creepy or gives you the willies would be a good explanation.
Yeah, I think it's so simple. I mean, it's like one of those films that there's really not much of a plot there. I mean, you've got it's such a simple story. Kid kills his sister. They put him away. He escapes. As an adult, and then he just kind of goes off on this random stalking and killing spree. And and then you've got the Van Helsing-esque psychiatrist, Dr. Dr. Samuel Loomis, played by Donald Pleasance, and he's the guy that kind of tells you, because we don't know anything about Michael Myers in this film. We only know that he was a little kid, killed his sister. That's all we know. And then all of a sudden, he's out and about, and the way they shoot it, he's just kind of out in the background, and he's outside the window, but we don't know what this guy's about really. So we've got this psychiatrist who kind of carries the story along, and kind of gets the audience up to date on, okay, this guy, what is he? Well, he's pure evil. He's he's basically this inhuman monster, and it's just wearing the mask, and the mask works perfectly for it, and just such a great film, and just the way in its simplicity, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too with like the way you said that is like there really isn't that much of a story there. Really? I mean, there really isn't if you really think about it as a whole. Like, if that was a book, it would be probably boring as hell.
Yeah,
You know, because I mean, there
absolutely.
was no explanation of anything at
Yeah.
all. And I know that like my oldest daughter watched it last year or the year before, and she was like bored with it. And then I know other people that haven't ever seen it that watch it now. I mean, hell, you know, nowadays there's stuff on just regular TV that's not even necessarily in prime time that's, you know, gorier and creepier than that movie.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Your daughter's response to it. It kind of just shows. I mean, back when this first came out, this thing was so. This was the first time there was anything like it, so people were scared of it. But yeah, it does kind of plod along. I mean, nothing really happens, other than you're getting a little bit of the background of this town and this girl who she's going to babysit the kid down the block, that evening. But yeah, it does. It's interesting because I don't know. I mean, it seems like it has a huge cult fan base, and that new people get into it. But it seems like a lot of people do find it boring, and it's just probably because it's a 1978 film, and it's not designed for modern day viewers who are used to far more things happening on the screen. I would guess.
Yeah, and there's a in that movie there's like I said, I don't think there was really, and I've always wondered this too, with some of the stuff that came out later, especially in part two, if if Carpenter had any of that in his head when he wrote one or not. I'm not sure.
You mean the some of the plot, the changes in the story?
Yeah, so part one, you know, basically starts in the story starts in 1963, jumps to 1978 on Halloween night. The end of the movie, Michael Myers is supposedly killed, falls off the balcony. Part two, which technically doesn't take place on Halloween. Well, depending on what time of night it was, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, picks up right where part one left off, and there's all these little pieces that are sort of shared in part two. The biggest one being that Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, was actually Michael Myers' baby sister, who I don't trying to remember if I don't even think there was a they ever like had a they ever showed a baby at the beginning of the first one.
No, they do not.
And I always wonder too if like there was a scene, you know, back in those days, like we have now, like if there's 18 different versions of the movie that you know all these extras and stuff. I wonder if there was a scene like cut from that where they had like maybe even just a baby crying. Well, probably not though, because I don't think he was even thinking of it at that point.
No, actually, and to answer your question with that, he was not thinking about that. He Carpenter saw this movie as just this is it. It ends at the end when Loomis shoots him off the balcony. He lands in the yard. Loomis looks over and he's gone. That was the end. That was the end of the story. Halloween 2. The only reason Halloween 2 was made was because of the success of Halloween 1. And that was a studio decision. That was all about the money. So Carpenter actually didn't even want to direct that film. So they hired somebody else to direct the film, and he had already and Halloween built him up, and he kind of stuck around for part two. I think he was a producer, and he wrote the screenplay again. But yeah, that was they got Rick Rosenthal for Halloween 2, and he was kind of like the studio's secondhand man because Carpenter had just kind of hit the limelight and everybody was asking for him. So anytime Carpenter wasn't available, they would grab Rick. And that's how Halloween 2 sort of came about. But yeah, that was a cash grab. And actually Carpenter's original idea was he wanted to do an anthology series for Halloween. He didn't want to keep the Michael Myers story going. He wanted to do different films based on Halloween and the season, but had nothing to do with each other in terms of the plot. So yeah, Halloween 1 was supposed to end, and being that I'm a fanatic about that original film, I kind of see it that way. There's some of the sequels I do enjoy, but I kind of see the story ending there I think it's far more creepier. He's gone. He's out there. He's still out there somewhere. You hear him breathing in the background. Great ending.
The yeah, with Halloween 2, it was pretty good. It in my mind, I think it was probably actually one of the better sequels. That, and in those days, and in 1978 and even 1981, Jamie Lee Curtis was like smoking hot. So even now, like when you watch those movies, go back to it and watch them, still you're like, damn. Which I don't think when we were in fourth grade watching it, I don't think we ever really appreciated that.
No, I don't think we did. We were still just a little too young.
So speaking of breaking off and going the anthology type route with the movies, that's when Halloween 3, or commonly referred to just as Season of the Witch, comes into play, which really did that. Michael Myers was nowhere at all in the storyline of Halloween 3. Season of the Witch, I haven't seen that one for a while. I don't think that one actually took place in Haddonfield. I think it was actually supposed to be in some small town in California or something along those lines. And that's where the Silver Shamrock Halloween masks come into play.
Yeah, Halloween 3 is quite a little treat, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember when we were kids and I saw that movie, I never liked it. And I think that I never did like it for the simple fact that Michael Myers wasn't in it. There wasn't a serial killer or anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, Halloween 1, the original, like we said, probably my favorite. Very probably could very well be my favorite movie of all time. Certainly my favorite horror movie of all time. Halloween 2, I think, it's not a great movie, but it's a good movie. It's a good sequel to the original, and it gives you everything that you liked about the original and just kind of amps it up a little bit. And you get all the cast members back, so it's an enjoyable watch. And actually, those two movies I watch every year now. That's kind of my tradition. Halloween 3 now. Now, outside of a little bit of nostalgia for the fact that it's an old early '80s horror film, you can kind of feel Carpenter and his team on there. They've got Dean Cundy, the cinematographer. He's there. You can kind of see the way he filmed everything. It's sort of the same ambiance of the first two films, but that movie to me is a complete dud. I can't sit here and honestly say I like that film. I mean, as a popcorn Friday night, okay, I'm gonna get a six pack. I'm gonna relax, watch a horror movie. Okay, sure. Do that, a double feature, that and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 or something. But that is, to me, it's just one of those really cheesy, off the wall, ridiculous horror films. Kind of goes along another one of our favorites, Prom Night 2. I think it fits into that category pretty well.
Oh, Prom Night 2. Yeah, Prom Night 2, Hello, Mary Lou. This was a movie that we watched. We watched it a lot, though. I remember that.
Yeah.
Which actually,
like there was something about that flick.
Yeah, and then, which actually, ironically, is a sequel to Prom Night, which was a Jamie Lee Curtis movie, which I still, to this day, have never actually seen the original Prom Night. But
you're not missing much.
What was it? Probably 5 years ago or something. I saw Prom Night 2 in the bargain bin at Walmart. Like this time of year, if you're a horror fan, this like September, October is the time to go to Walmart because they have like like their $5 movies. They have a whole bunch of horror movies. But anyway, yeah, I picked up Prom Night 2. Hadn't seen it for probably 20 years, and then we got together. Didn't watch it. We put it in. I got like 15 minutes of that movie, and I was like, this is the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen. What the hell? It was horrible.
It's terrible. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't. What did we see in that film? I mean, what did us? We were what,
Ugh,
11, 10,
12,
11 years
yeah.
old.
I don't even
We
remember.
watched that film, and something about it then really captivated us. But yeah, going back and watching it, yeah, we got together. I remember that we were sitting back and we just could barely get through it.
No, it was horrible. It was so bad. But yeah, Halloween 3 was a movie that I'd watched when we were kids, didn't like, and then I went back and watched it a few years ago because I don't remember how long ago it was. I think it was in like the $5 bin at Walmart one year. They had a bunch of the Halloween movies like in 2 packs for $5, and I think it was like what was it? It was 2 and 3, and then like 4 and 5, and then I think maybe the 6 H2O and Resurrection were all together or something. But anyway, so I hadn't watched it for probably 20 years and put it in, and it was probably like one of those times where it was like I was home alone or something for some odd reason, or it was a Wednesday night and there was nothing else going on, so popped it in, and I can't say that I hated it at that time, but I don't think I would ever. It's not a movie I would just like, hey, let's do a Halloween bender and let's watch all the Halloween movies. I mean, if I was to do something like that, I would probably skip it. But it was,
Yeah, it's definitely a skippable film, if that's even a word, skippable. But yeah, that's not one that you need to toss into your Halloween marathon.
no, not at all. The yeah, and the crazy thing about that was, so if you're not familiar with the story of Halloween 3, just like I said, I'm going to wreck every movie for you. And the premise of the movie was there's these masks. There was the witch, jack o' lantern, and what was the other one? A skeleton.
It was a skull.
Yeah, and so you would wear the kids would put these masks on, and then there was a broadcast from whatever the hell the company was.
Silver Shamrock.
Yeah, that's right. And it was this broadcast, and it was going to like brainwash these kids or whatever it was supposed to do, turn their brains into mush, or I don't even remember. I haven't seen it for so long.
Yeah, well, I don't think we ever really know. It's whatever it does, whatever happens though, it's supposed to be pretty nasty though. I mean, the only time you see what actually happens is when in that like so the family, there's like a family of, so basically, like, Tom Atkins is the star, and he's well known for these kind of cheeseball horror films. He was in The Fog, Creep Show, a couple others I can't think of off the Night of the Creeps. But so he's this so he's a doctor, and somehow somebody gets killed in his hospital in a very strange way, and so he goes on this quest to figure out what happened. And it wasn't it something didn't something link the death of the patient at his hospital had something to do with the masks, or had a mask on him or something like that. And then so he goes on this hunt to find this company, which I don't recall, was it like the next town over or something? It was, I think he just drove to the town, to the factory where they were making these masks.
Yeah, I
But it
don't
was
remember. All I remember was there was something with. Didn't something happen and like the masks started oozing green ooze or something? I don't remember.
well there's a well yeah what happens is they go to the factory, and at the same time that Tom Atkins and this female character, like the lead female role, she happens to be the daughter of the guy who was killed in the hospital, and so she's trying to find out what happened to her dad, and Tom Atkins is with her, and they go to the factory, and basically they run into, there's a family that ends up at the factory at the same time, and apparently this guy was like the top salesman for the company, for the Silver Shamrock mask company. So he's getting a tour of the factory, and then somewhere down the road they end up in this test room, and the family's locked into this room, and the kid has one of the masks, and he puts it on, and the TV thing goes on, and the little logo and the ridiculous song starts, how the annoying Silver Shamrock song goes on and on and on, and then his head, it turns to mush, and snakes and bugs come out of the mask.
Yeah, and there was like I want to say I remember seeing like green, like neon green like slime coming out or something. I don't remember.
The neon green slime was the insides of the androids.
I kind of
That
I'm kind of starting to feel like after talking about this one that. Sorry, folks. We are prepared for this episode, even though it sounds like we have no idea what the hell we're talking about.
yeah, Halloween 3 is not a very. I don't think anybody could prepare for Halloween 3. But yeah, you're thinking that there's these androids that wander around the factory and they have this green oozy slime blood type stuff inside them. There's a scene where Tom Atkins punches a hole in one of them.
That's where I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, if I remember seeing this somewhere, like you were talking about how part 2 was kind of a cash grab. I know that part 3 was for sure because Mustafa, the producer of the movies, I think he produced all of them, all the original ones anyway. I know that he was really big on just pumping them out. If there was any chance of making money at all, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep making them. He didn't care about anything.
Oh yeah, he would. That every interview you ever hear of him talking about Halloween, that's his thing. It's all about the money. He's going to keep making them until he actually passed away. He died in a terrorist attack, believe that or not. I don't know. Do you remember hearing about that?
I do not remember hearing about that.
Yeah, him and his daughter died. Mustafa Akkad. They were in a hotel at a wedding. I think it was his daughter's wedding, and I could be wrong on that part. But he died. The terrorists attacked the building, like blew up the building or something. He was in it. He died during that. So his son Malik Akkad took over, and so now he's kind of following in his father's footsteps and doing the whole. He's in charge of the Halloween films from then on.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into enough about the crappy Halloween movie, but we're not done with the crappy Halloween movies yet. Part 3 is not the worst one by far. But before we get to the other bad ones, let's talk about which, in my personal opinion, are, of the original ones anyway, the greatest of the group. And that starts with number 4 and then number 5. Number 6 isn't really, I wouldn't consider that a great one either. But number 4, which is the return of Michael Myers, which came out in 88, so we were 12 when it came out. 12-ish.
Yeah, we were definitely in 6th grade because I have a strange memory of walking around the outside or the outskirts sidewalk of East School during a recess, and I remember talking about Halloween 4, and it was in the theater that week or something, and a few of us were trying to figure out whether or not we were going to go.
Yeah, and I remember that with Halloween 4, the couple of things that I do remember with Halloween 4 is it was the first Halloween movie that I had seen unedited. It must have been like the next spring or something. I was at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother used to go. We used to go into town with her, and we'd always pick out a couple movies and stuff, and she didn't give a shit. So I'm like, oh, Halloween 4, I haven't seen that. And so I got it. And watching it by myself in this dark farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. And if you remember, Halloween 4 is the Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 were as well. But it was dark as hell. And it would, for whatever reason, that movie scared the living shit out of me for a long time.
So Halloween 4 was your first introduction to Michael Myers, then, would you say?
No, I mean, I'd seen the first 2 before, but edited versions of that.
Okay, gotcha. No, that's right. Yeah, you said you saw those too at my house.
Yep. Yeah, and
Okay.
I remember. I was trying to think if when 4 came out, if I still lived in Zion when that. Yeah, I did. I would have still lived in Zion when it came out, but I can't remember if I still lived in Zion when I saw it, or where we were located when we were kids.
I think I thought it seems for some reason I have a memory of you having seen it back then. So
I
I don't
could
know,
have.
maybe
Yeah, I don't remember how. I was trying to think of, but I do remember. I do specifically remember watching it at their house,
okay.
and it's
I,
scaring the crap out of me.
I remember they had this commercial too that they would like on cable they had this constant like on what is the channel that has the schedule of what's on TV.
Oh
You know
yeah,
how
like
like
the TV Guide channel, kind of.
the TV Guide channel. You know how like you when you're watching that they have like the commercial ad or whatever going on above. Well,
Yep.
I remember they had that with Halloween 4, where it was a constant like trailer or TV spot for that. They just played it nonstop. It was like, in constant rotation. And I hadn't seen it at the time. I think I saw it the year after too. But like I just remember seeing that over and over again. The couple of shots, the scene where Loomis meets him in the gas station, and you see Myers from a distance. The scene where he pops out of the closet, with the knife. A couple of scenes like that. And it did intrigue me. I was very interested in seeing what this film was about.
Yeah, there was a couple of things with that was really great. In number 4 was, of course, Michael Myers was back, and it's been a couple of years since I've seen that one, and I'll explain why it's been a couple of years since I've seen some of these. You guys will in a little bit. You'll be like, oh. So the movie starts off with Michael survived the fire that was at the end of part 2, and has basically been in a coma for however many years it's been. In theory, it would have been at least like 10. And so then he was back at Smith Groves, the place that he originally broke out of, or I shouldn't say he was back there. I think he was like being transferred back because then he woke up isn't that the one where he wakes up in the ambulance?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things worth noting in part 4. One of the most notable things is when he's like waking up. I remember this is that he wakes up to like while they're discussing that Laurie Strode had died in a car accident, which was Jamie Lee Curtis's movie, and she had a daughter, Jamie Lloyd, who was played by Danielle Harris, and everybody knows that I'm a huge Danielle Harris fan.
Yes.
This was
The
my
great Danielle Harris.
first exposure to Danielle Harris. Was that movie? But anyway, so then that's the whole plot of the movie is Michael, comes out of the coma and basically heads back to Haddonfield to find his long lost niece.
And this is kind of the MO that they're following with just like they did with Halloween 2, where the original movie everything was random. There was no reason for why he chose Jamie Lee Curtis's character and the other two girls in that film. It was just this. There's a psycho, the boogeyman. He's out there. Whoever he just happened to come across, that's kind of who he was. He had his eye on. Then Halloween 2 came, and they needed to build the story. So they did this whole thing where, okay, no, now Jamie Lee Curtis is a sister. And so this kind of follows along with that same thing where this is where it gets into that story turns into where basically Michael Myers is after his bloodline. So he's constantly kind of seeking out his next of kin or whatever. So now it's this little girl, Jamie Lloyd, played by, as you said, the wonderful. Did you say the wonderful? I know you probably meant to.
No, you
The
said the
wonderful.
wonderful.
Oh, I said it. Okay. The wonderful Danielle Harris, who you got her autograph, didn't you?
Yep, I met Danielle a couple years ago. Danny, as I like to call her, a couple years ago at Flashback Weekend in Chicago. Actually spent a little bit of time talking with her at her table, where you had to pay for signatures, and then got to spend a little bit of time talking with her at some of the movies. Like they premiered one of her movie, her directorial debut at that, a movie called Among Friends was the movie that she directed that was there. And then there's a couple of other things too. She was in Sean Clark's movie, the Black. I can't even think of the name of it right now. Legend of Black Pond or whatever it was called. She was in that movie as well, and so I got to spend a little bit of time talking with her and Sean in the bar one night. So it was pretty cool.
Dude, I'm jealous.
I actually talking about Danielle Harris, which I knew we were going to do anyway. There's no way we were going to talk about Halloween and not talk about Danny.
Oh no, she's part of this.
So it was kind of funny too because like I had said earlier, Halloween 4, the first time I saw Halloween 4 scared the crap out of me. And I was born in 1976, and Danielle Harris was born in 1977. So she's roughly my age. And when I met her at Flashback Weekend, I told her that, that I had been a fan since I was, I'm sure I sounded like horribly creepy. But I told her that I had, saw her in Halloween 4 and I was a fan ever since. Cause she made Halloween 4 and then she was in Halloween 5. She was not in Halloween 6. And then she kind of went away from the horror genre for a while. And then she did a bunch of, she was on Roseanne, and then she was a voice character on The Wild Thornberrys, I think was the name of the show. And then she did some other, TV type work, and then she finally came back into the horror genre. And then actually she was a character in Rob Zombie's Halloween's, which we'll get to later. But yeah, she was great at the thing. She was really talkative and really nice. It's with her characters recently and everything that she's in. I shouldn't say everything, but most of the stuff that she's in now, for the most part, she tends to play like a bitch character, like a bitchy girl. And then, but she was really, really super nice in person and stuff. She is the only celebrity that I have ever met that I've had my picture taken with. She's the only one I ever oh, well, can I get a picture? And she's like, yeah.
That is so cool.
So, but it's kind of funny with her now. And we're going a little bit off topic here. But she's been in a couple of movies recently. Like I said, she's in her, technically in her late 30s now. But even up until just a few years ago, she was always still playing like that 20-something character. When Rob Zombie's Halloween's came out in 2007 and 2009 or 2010 or whatever it was, she played a high school kid, and she was in her, she was 30. But anyway, in the last in the last two movies she's in, she's been the mom, so it's been kind of weird. In the movie Hallows Eve, I'm not even sure if that technically is even out yet. But yeah, she was the mom in that movie. It was oh, really?
Wait, you're talking All Hallows Eve?
Yeah, All Hallows Eve. That's what it was. Yeah.
I've never seen. Is that like an anthology? Or am I thinking of something else?
No, you're thinking of something else. That's
Okay.
yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, All Hallows Eve. Yeah, I think that was it. So, but anyway, she was in that one. And the story in part 4 is pretty straightforward. Michael finds out that he has a niece. He goes back to Haddonfield to track her down. Cops catch up to him, pretty much annihilate him at the end of the movie, and then he falls. You're not really sure what he falls into at the end of 4. He falls down on the ground and he like disappears into the ground. So you assume it's like a mine shaft or something.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be some kind of a mine shaft. I think you're right on that.
Yep.
That's what the
Yeah.
yeah.
And then so part 4 and then part 5 kind of took the it's not the same storyline, but kind of picked up like sort of where like how 2 picked up right off after 1. 5 starts at the end of part 4. Find out that Michael falls down this mine. What then is revealed is this like mine shaft, and basically this like hermit guy stumbles across him and pulls him into like this barn or shed or whatever you want to call it, and bandages him up and fixes him up, and he basically lays in rest for a year.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of opening when you think about that. So here you have Michael Myers dormant, living with this old hermit sailor guy, and waiting for Halloween. I guess that's pretty much what he's doing, waiting for the following Halloween, and then you've got that psychic connection between him and Jamie.
Yep. Yeah. So they had this weird psychic connection all of a sudden, which was kind of new to the Halloween franchise. Oh, and the other thing too that we kind of didn't even mention before when we were talking about 4 is that 4 kind of skipped 3. Like 4 didn't. There was no mention of Season of the Witch in 4 at all. Which really isn't that important, but so yeah, part 5 comes out, and then the one thing that I always thought was kind of interesting in part 5 was I really felt that the Dr. Loomis character sort of broke character in part 5 a little bit because he was. Well, he essentially became Jamie's doctor he was Jamie's doctor in part 5, and he sort of was using Jamie to lure Michael back to him, is what he was doing, because he knew in his mind that Michael was going to come back.
Yeah, he Sam Loomis is an interesting character because he becomes more and more unstable as the films kind of progress. I think. I mean, like the first one, he's a little bit more pulled back. He's kind of holding it together, and then the second one, just starting it just at the very first scene with him, and him we're going back again to Halloween 2, but when you get the recap of the original, and then he says some line when he looks down and he touches the ground and sees that Michael's not there anymore, and he says something like, the neighbor comes by and says, "I've been trick-or-treated to death," and Donald gives him this line like, "Oh, you don't know what death is," and at that point this character is getting a little weirder. I mean, something's happening, and then he's freaking out with the cop the whole time in 2, and he just really really playing it up. But by the time 4 comes, I think it's pretty safe to say the man has gone mad. I mean, he's no longer. I don't think I think this Michael Myers obsession of his has pretty much taken over, and it's no longer about any sort of sense of okay, we're gonna go and do this, get the police involved and take care of this problem. I think he's really kind of at that place where he knows he's going to have to do something drastic, and that goes with the whole you know luring Jamie there and kind of putting the little girl in danger, which is, yeah, it's very interesting. It's very that is kind of a strange thing, because it's almost like he's not really concerned about her well-being at that point.
Right. Yeah.
But he really plays it up in that one.
Yeah, and then and then at the end of part 4, or I'm sorry, at the end of part 5, basically what happens is, they didn't kill Michael at the end of part 5. He was like captured, and then he's broken out by this guy dressed in all black, and they don't ever really, and then that's kind of where it ends.
Yeah, it's very unexplained.
Yeah, and then part 6 comes along, which was sort of like part 4 and part 5, and then part 6, which I believe when part 6 originally came out, I don't think it was ever labeled as part 6. I think it was originally just came out as Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. I think they were starting to get away from numbering them, which was a few years after part 5 came out. I think that one came out when either the year I graduated high school or the year after, 95 or 96.
Yeah, that was 90. That was a year after.
Yeah,
that would have been, or no, that would have been, no, it was 95, the fall of 95. So we were out of high school at that point.
Yeah, because I do remember that Halloween 6 was the first Halloween that I saw in the theaters.
Actually, yeah, same here. I actually saw that movie multiple times in the theaters, and it was the very first time I had seen one and got the chance to see one. And back then I enjoyed it. I look back at it now and I don't think I enjoy it much anymore. But I don't know. It had its moments. I thought, it did good with it kind of gave you the feel of, the Haddonfield kind of experience, the neighborhoods, the leaves, the pumpkins, gave you that sort of ambiance that the original film, and I always go back to the original when I compare these films. So it had that. It also brought back the Tommy Doyle character came back in that one.
Yep, yeah, that was something that we didn't mention in the first part when we were talking about part 1. Laurie Strode's character, she was babysitting on the night of Halloween in '78 when Michael came back, and she was babysitting Tommy Doyle.
Yep.
So
he's back in there.
Yeah, and part 5 or part 6 was supposed to be taking place several years after part 5, and actually the opening of the movie, Jamie Lloyd's character is escaping, or not really escaping. I was trying to. She was like escaping because they were the mysterious the guy in black that got Michael out was coming after her because she was pregnant and they wanted her baby.
Yeah, this is when this is kind of, this is when a movie series is really been around for a while, and they're really trying to stretch the story, and so you've got this whole cult, this basically like a satanic cult that kind of runs Michael Myers, or that he's part of, and so you got this backstory, and that kind of goes back to actually Halloween 2, in the scene with Sam Loomis when they go into there's a scene where the police find out that Michael Myers had broken into this school, this elementary school, and so and Loomis goes and meets them there, and they find a knife stuck into a desk, and it's like on a picture of a family, and the knife is in the picture of the representation of the sister, and then you've got Sam Hain written on the chalkboard, and then Loomis goes into this whole dialogue about Sam Hain being this festival of this Druid festival of Halloween and all the kind of the back the original story of Halloween and all of that. And so yeah, this kind of links to that one. And then I mean, it's obviously far more elaborated upon. But then the guy in black, and that's his whole thing, is he's linked to that. So, and I actually didn't catch this on when I viewed the film, but I had recently been reading up on it, and apparently, so the story is that Doctor, what was the guy, the man in black turns out to be the doctor that was briefly mentioned in the original film, working at Smith Grove, and he's trying to recruit Loomis to come work for him, to take over his spot.
Yep. Yeah. So that was part 6. Dr. Loomis is now retired. One thing that's not mentioned in the theatrical version of the movie is at the end of part 2, there's this big fire that Michael, was presumed to burn up in or being in a coma from. And in part 4 and 5, Dr. Loomis's face is heavily scarred because of the fire at the end of part 2. What's never explained in the theatrical version is all of a sudden Dr. Loomis's face now is smooth.
Ah, that's right.
And it's because
he didn't have that little latex thing he had on the side of his face.
Right.
That's right.
And so, as I mentioned earlier, so some of the previous movies I had not watched in preparation for this episode is because I have spent the last month watching all these special editions of all these other movies. So there was what was called the producer's cut of part 6, which essentially what it was kind of a bootlegged version of part 6 that's been around for, well, really, I think since part 6 came out in 1995. But it had a whole bunch of additional scenes and added scenes and things like that. But yeah, you're right. So Dr. Loomis is retired in part 6, and Dr. Wynn, I think was his name, from Smith Grove, come back and was trying to recruit Dr. Loomis to come back and take his place. And then it comes out that this Dr. Wynn actually is this mysterious man in black. And they have actually been helping Michael survive since the first movie. Yeah. And the plot of 6 really was to use Jamie's baby that she was pregnant with at the beginning of the movie. In the theatrical version of the movie, Jamie goes to this bus station, gives birth to this baby at the bus station, presumably hides the baby in a closet. And then Tommy Doyle's character, who again was the boy that Laurie Strode was babysitting in the very original Halloween, is now a grown man. It's almost 20 years later, and he is now obsessed with Michael Myers, and he finds the baby, and then he helps the baby, and what I don't remember if they actually even really explained it in the movie, but the lady that lived next door to Tommy was actually Kara Strode, who was Laurie's cousin, and she had a little boy named Danny, and they, the whole plot of the movie is trying to help those folks out. But yeah, it really went off the rails, and it really got weird. This whole this cult of Thorn is what this Dr. Wynn was part of. That was this. I don't know if it was really meant to be like satanic or what it was supposed to be, but it was really this cult that was really oriented around Michael, and there was this whole thing where it was supposed to be like, what was it, one child a generation or one child every 100 years or so. It was a really weird storyline.
Oh man, yeah, I can't even remember. I like I'm trying to think back at all whatever happens, in the last 20 minutes of that film. I mean I remember what happens at the ending, but the build up to it, I don't even I kind of lost track of what was going on in the storyline. It gets very very strange. It's probably the strangest one of the entire series.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like one of the biggest things in the difference between the producer's cut, which I watched, and the original was the Jamie Lloyd character was killed off pretty much right away in the theatrical version. But in the producer's cut, she was kept alive, and they were trying to do whatever to her. I mean, both movies were really weird.
Very strange, very strange films. Yeah, I still have to check out that producer, but I have read a little bit about it, and you've been telling me about it, and yeah, they really took the series in a very very strange direction with 6, and like you said, I think that 4, 5, and 6 are kind of their own strange little trilogy,
Yep.
based upon the Thorn cult, the Danielle Harris, the first two, and then I guess what the part 6 they couldn't get her because they refused to pay her asking price. I think if I remember correctly.
There was a few things with that. Yeah. The biggest reason was she didn't want to come back into the series and be killed off.
Yeah, why would they do that?
Yeah, she actually wanted to, and she used to be. I don't know if she still is nowadays, but before the zombie movies came out, she was very public about how she really wanted to come back as the killer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she had pitched that idea to the directors of both 4 and 5, as well as Mustafa, multiple times. Like, it'd be really great if I came back and I was the killer.
Well, that's how they leave part 4. They end it with her,
Right, and so that's
killer.
kind of where she got the idea from.
And I know Mustafa wouldn't have allowed that to happen though because of 3. I know his thing had been, we're going to keep making them, and we're always going to make them with Michael Myers because that's where the money is, and that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, and then the biggest difference between the producer's cut and the theatrical version really was the end. And I don't know if this was because of things that happened outside of the movie, prominently being the fact that Donald Pleasance died after Part 6 was filmed, but before it was released, or if it was anything else to that effect. But essentially, that the Cult of Thorn, which wasn't really in Part 4, but it was kind of sort of introduced at the end of Part 5. You had the man in black who had the weird triangle tattoo on his wrist, and then that was in Part 6. That was that symbol, and that tattoo on the wrist was proven to be, I think actually Michael had it on his wrist as well, and then it was proven to be the symbol of Thorn. In the producer's cut of Part 6, at the end of the movie, nothing happens to Michael Myers, and actually what happens is in the producer's cut, Dr. Loomis is branded with that symbol at the end of the movie, and essentially, which would turn him into the cult leader, which I think they were thinking that would be like the next movies. But then the theatrical movie was actually placed with Loomis dying.
Now, I like that ending. That sounds actually kind of cool. I mean, the ending of the theatrical version is so ambiguous. I mean, it ends with basically, what isn't it? Just like his mask laying on the ground, and you hear Loomis kind of scream in the background. You're not completely sure what happened,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, that I like that. That sounds kind of cool. That would have been kind of a good way to wrap that up.
yeah. Because I think they went back and kind of reshot or re-edited it after he died, to where, because I mean, they did just kind of like, because the theatrical version just kind of ends. And like you said, there's like it's like him like screaming in the background, and you're like,
Yeah.
"What happened?" And you don't even, I don't even think it's ever even really told that he died, because
Yeah, I
that
don't.
essentially is what it's supposed to be. Is he that Dr. Loomis is dead, and they did that because, well, he died in real life.
Yeah, he wasn't coming back. But yeah, they should have kept that though. I like the idea of him getting the tattoo. I mean, that really does sort of wrap up that story. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. I like the producer's cut better than the theatrical one, just because I mean some of the stuff was expounded on, and there was a few things. Oh, the biggest one, which I almost forgot. The other thing that was mentioned in the producer's cut was the fact that Jamie Lloyd's baby, because if you remember at the end of part 5, the Man in Black takes helps Michael escape and kidnaps Jamie Lloyd.
I know where you're going with this.
She's presumed dead. It turns out the baby she's pregnant with is Michael's baby, which is part of the whole. It was supposed to be, and that was never explained in the theatrical versions because it never was like. But the whole Thorn thing was like, oh, this baby is going to be the ultimate baby or whatever.
Well, I am glad they kept that out of there. That's that's an image I don't need. But oh wow, yeah. So we've got 4, 5, and 6 as a trilogy, and that would lead to H2O.
Yeah. So Halloween H2O, or 20 years later, or whatever you want to call it, came out and pretty much ignored the fact that they ever made Halloween 3, which really wasn't a Halloween movie, but more importantly, it ignored the fact that Halloween 4 and 5 ever took place, and basically they said that Laurie Strode faked her own death to get away from Michael in that movie.
Yeah, Halloween H2O. That's I saw that one in the theater too, and I actually kind of enjoyed it because they brought it back to more of the tone of the first two films. And again, I'm a huge fan of the original, and bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back was cool too. But to be honest with you, when it came to Jamie Lee Curtis, I didn't really feel that she was. I didn't feel that the Laurie Strode character was being portrayed. It seemed more like she was just kind of playing herself. Does that make sense? Or it just didn't seem like Laurie Strode.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't know. Maybe it was the short hair. I don't know. It just seemed like Jamie Lee Curtis had become such a I don't know, like a personality that it seemed like that's what we were seeing, and I didn't really sense it was Laurie from the original Halloween movie. But I do like that. I mean, to me, okay, the first Halloween movie is my favorite. The second one, I love that. It's probably my favorite sequel of the bunch. But then H2O, if you were to look at the Halloween movies as a trilogy and you wanted to skip 4, 5, and 6, and the whole Thorn cult thingy, you would have Halloween, Halloween 2, and H2O. And I think it kind of it's sort of a nice little trilogy there. Now, and another thing I don't like about Halloween H2O is that this is a 90s horror film, and it really feels like a 90s horror film. It's got that kind of Scream feel to it. It's got the Dawson's Creek kind of feel to it with the teenagers. It kind of, I don't know, the 90s to me in horror just didn't work.
Yeah, my biggest problem, my biggest problem with the movie was the fact that, in H2O, she has a son who is a student at this private school that she's like the headmistress at, and it's never addressed in the movie that, so she faked her own death, so then she just abandoned her daughter, the however many years ago it would have been, the 18 years before this or whatever it was.
Well, I think with this we have to kind of erase 4, 5, and 6 in order for this one to make sense. I think that's truly what the filmmakers were doing. They're just kind of, okay, 4, 5, and 6. We don't know where we're going to go with this, so we're just going to drop it, and let's go back to Halloween 2. Because it's 20 years later, so it's basically saying, 20 years from the night of, because this was 98. And then, the Halloween, the original 78, and, that was when Michael Myers came home, so now he's returning 20 years later. So it kind of had that, that feel, okay, we're not going to worry about 4, 5, and 6. But yeah, the movie itself was okay, but yeah, I didn't really care for, I don't know, the 90s horror thing. And also, John Carpenter was offered the role to come back and direct, and he refused it, or he was asking too much money, I believe, and then they wouldn't pay him that, and he's missed because it certainly isn't a Carpenter film.
No, and again, this goes back to the whole, and I don't think it was ever even addressed in the movie, to where, they're not in Haddonfield. I don't think it's ever really mentioned where they are at, and she's not Laurie Strode in the movie. She was Kathy Tate or Carrie Tate or something. But I mean, it's never explained how Michael finds her.
No. Wait. Wait. Maybe. No. They don't. They explain it at the beginning, because when he goes into and gets the files. Do you remember that?
Maybe I don't remember that.
Yeah, the beginning of the film, actually the nurse from Halloween 1, when she was in Halloween 2 as well, the nurse from at the beginning of Halloween 1, when Loomis is going to pick up Michael for the transfer, and he finds out that he escaped, and everybody's running around, and all the inmates are running around in the field. Well, that nurse who's driving the car, she returns for H2O, and she's kind of like Loomis's caregiver or something along those lines. Loomis isn't in it, but obviously because Donald Pleasance passed away. But so it starts out in her house, and Michael Myers had gone through her files, or the files or maybe that was Loomis's house. No, it was her house.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was her house, but she had all the files that Loomis had.
Yeah, I think I've actually seen H2O like twice, so I wasn't a big fan. Much. Yeah. So the biggest thing, at least for me, the one thing I do remember with H2O was at the end of the movie, Laurie decapitates Michael Myers, like cuts his head off,
which is awesome.
Yeah, and if I remember, I thought I had heard this a couple of times, that was part of one of the reasons why Jamie Lee Curtis agreed to do the movie was that she would come back and they would kind of wrap it up. And as we all know, that's never the case, especially with this Mustafa guy. He was all about the money. So a couple of years later, they came out with, which is by far the worst piece of crap. You could almost even say the worst movie ever made. And
this is The Pits.
Probably, be tied with the top. Halloween Resurrection came out, was supposed to be whatever you want to call it, a reality type. It wasn't really a found footage. It was just it was supposed to be like a reality TV, whatever you call that type of.
Kind of like Ghost Hunters. A bunch of teenagers running around in a house with flashlights.
Yep.
And video cameras.
Yep. But that movie starts off with one of the stupidest things. Well, I shouldn't say stupidest. Well, yeah, it's pretty stupid. So it jumps back again to the end of H2O, and then we learn that Michael Myers switched clothes with one of the paramedics, broke his neck, and then put his mask on him, and then that was actually who Laurie killed, and not actually Michael. And
how contrived can you be? I mean, that has Mustafa written all over it. They're going to bring him back, and they're going to do whatever it takes to make this character continue on and to keep getting fans to pay to see this guy on the screen.
Yep. And the other thing in Resurrection that is completely and utterly ridiculous in my mind was they managed to bring Jamie Lee Curtis back for a scene, and that scene was for her to be killed. And she agreed to do it. Yeah,
it's just absolute ridiculous. I forget there's a reason. There's some sort of reasoning by that. I think I think she had to sign something for H2 that said that she would return for the second one, for the follow-up.
Yep, I believe you're right. And she said that she would only come back if they killed her off right away.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was part of it. But Halloween Resurrection. I mean, it's just there's no need for it. It doesn't do anything for the series. It doesn't take the series into any interesting new directions. It's completely a waste of time. And you've got what's the rapper?
Busta Rhymes.
Busta Rhymes. Okay, which you can't. You add a rapper into the Halloween series, and you're taking it into. Well, I guess LL Cool J was in the other one, but Busta Rhymes being in this movie just kind of, I don't know, took away all that sort of sense of, what you think of when you think of a Halloween film. It turned into something totally different, and then, this to me was the end of the series. It was dead on arrival. Bury it. It's over.
Yeah, so we won't spend too much time talking about that piece of shit, because that was a horrible movie.
Thank goodness.
So let's go ahead and jump ahead 5 years into the future when, it was after the whole resurgence of the remake of the great 70s and 80s horror movies was underway. And that would be when Rob Zombie took the helm and made the masterpiece that is 2007's Halloween.
Oh, you're really talking this one up.
So, this movie, Halloween, by Rob Zombie, and in order to really appreciate Rob Zombie's version of Halloween, you really have to be a Rob Zombie, not as Rob Zombie fan, but you have to be a fan of Rob Zombie's movies. And one of the things that Zombie does with all of his movies, except for the cartoon that he did, whatever the hell the name of that one was, I had it in my mind a little bit ago and I completely forgot it. El Sex Bistro or something. But anyway, okay. House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, Lords of Salem, all those movies. I mean, Zombie he's a horror fan, and his horror movies pay homage to, well, the genre, really. So, but in my honest opinion, and I know there's a lot of people that, and I know there's certain people sitting in on this episode of the podcast that
Yeah.
feel that remakes, the originals, not just of this one, but originals you can't really mess with and blah blah blah. But if you can separate the fact that if you can separate the remake from the original and just think of it as its own movie, it is my favorite of the series.
It's your favorite out of every single one of them, everything we've just discussed.
Yep. Possibly my favorite horror movie ever.
Really? Now that is fascinating. I mean, because I think of it too, kind of like, this remake, similar to like, using John Carpenter since he did the original Halloween. He remade The Thing. Now, I've never seen the original Thing movie, which came out, I think, in the 50s.
Pretty good.
But, everybody sees the remake as the movie, and obviously it's a far more visual film because of the special effects and everything that were around in the 80s compared to what was around in the 50s. But that's interesting. So you actually, because you were in the generation of the original Halloween, as was I, but you find yourself liking Zombie's take of the material.
I do. There's a few things that we kind of covered some of this already, but the one thing that I really enjoyed with Zombie's version, and the other thing that I should point out too, which we kind of talked about earlier, with Halloween, Zombie's version, there are multiple versions of it available. There is the theatrical version, and then there is the director's cut, and then there is what is commonly referred to as the work print. And I had watched the original version about a month ago, and then a couple of weeks ago I watched the director's cut one day, I watched the work print the following day, and then I watched the original again the following day.
Wow, you were all over that film.
So I have seen this movie 4 times in the past month.
Wow, yeah. Now,
but with what I was going to say though, with that though, what the thing that dawned on me when I was watching the original again for the second time in a month after watching the work print and the director's cuts the day before and the day before that, was I was even thinking, like, am I gonna watch a different version tomorrow? And if I would have been fine with it. That was the first time in years that just watching a movie multiple times in a row, like, it still kept my attention. I was still like enthralled and still captivated by it.
Wow. Yeah. Now, I will say, okay, the original, to me, the 1978 Carpenter version is the superior film. I don't think anything would change that. I think I'm too biased. I've grown up on it. I think it's a perfect movie. Now, when I was actually really, really excited about the zombie film when I heard about it. I followed it, all the information that was coming out, everything, all the little news tidbits that were coming out, the casting. I'm a big fan of the that's one thing we didn't really talk about, but the masks in the movies. I'm a huge fan of the Halloween mask, the one that the mask that was used in the original film, which was, if you all those who are listening don't know, that was a William Shatner mask, and it was just like a cheap Shatner mask that they got at a Halloween store. They ripped off the sideburns, cut the eye holes a little bigger, and painted it white. And that was the image. That was Michael Myers. And they used that same mask for the first movie and the second movie. And then they weren't planning on making any more Michael Myers movies, so the mask was given to the actor who played him in part 2. And then for the rest of the series, the mask changed for each movie, and I thought that they sucked. I hated what he looked like. I hated that the mask didn't look like the original mask. I thought it just didn't work for me, and that was one of the reasons I didn't like 4, 5, and 6. H2O, it seemed like they tried to make it look a little closer to the original, but to me it wasn't enough. So that was a problem. But with this zombie movie, the design they actually came up with for his mask, I remember when they first revealed what he'd look like. I actually thought it was really cool because it wasn't the original mask, obviously, but it looked in certain lighting and certain angles, it looked very similar. And so having the fact that I mean, now this mask is like a rotted version I mean, he has it so basically, you know, Michael Myers goes back to his house and finds it underneath the floorboards, and the rubber is all decayed and rotted out, and so there's lines and scratches and dirt all over it, and it's kind of a cool look because it goes well with the film. So having the monster, the Michael Myers character, have a decent look, in my opinion, was a huge plus for me. So when I saw that image of him, I was like, okay, all right. So Zombie, and even Zombie mentioned something about how the masks in all the sequels were terrible, and that he was going to try to keep it more like what it looked like in the original. So I had high hopes for it, and actually I saw it in the theater, and I will say when I saw it in the theater, I enjoyed it. Now here's the thing. This is sort of the funny thing, and I guess this goes back to me being such a fan of the Carpenter film. So I see it, I like it. I was like, yeah, I enjoyed that. It was a good theater experience. So finally, it comes out on DVD, and I remember thinking, okay, as soon as it comes out, I'm going to buy it because I always buy the Halloween movies. And so I go to the store, and I'm like, you know what? I'm looking at the box. I'm like, I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to rent it because I only saw it the once. I'm going to sit down and watch it again. And then I watched it again, and I found myself not liking it nearly as much as I had thought I liked it when I saw it in the theater. And the reason for this, what I realized was I was too young to see the original in the theater, so I never got to experience, until much later, when you and I went. But I never got to experience those scenes with a group of strangers during a theatrical experience. So I got to see pretty much. I mean, the second half of the movie is Carpenter's film, for the most part. It's the same storyline. So I got to see all those scenes for a fresh take on them in the theater with people, a paying crowd, which people are excited, and they get excited to watching the movie and they interact with it. And I think that's what I liked more than the film itself, which is kind of strange, and I might be overanalyzing that, but I think it was that. I think it had enough of the Carpenter stuff, because I didn't really care for the way they depicted Michael. They made him too human, whereas Carpenter's Michael Myers is for lack of a better term, he's the boogeyman. He's more of like a supernatural presence. He's not human. And this one, they give you the backstory of the mom's a stripper, all the dysfunctional house and all household that he comes from, and I think you almost feel sorry for him, but you never feel sorry for him in Carpenter's version.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, somewhat, as far as the storyline goes and stuff. But that's actually what I really enjoyed about the story was, the first half of the movie is, Michael's having trouble. He's not really having trouble at home. His family's dysfunctional. He's having trouble at school. They find the dead cat in his backpack. He's getting picked on. Has problems with the principal. And then all of a sudden, just this one day, Halloween, they didn't really say what the date was in the original. I always like to think that it was actually started in 1978 and then went from there. But just this one day, Halloween, he just snaps. He kills the kid after school with the branch in the forest or the little walkway or whatever.
Now, was that in the theatrical cut too?
Yep.
Because I'm getting these all mixed up.
Yep. Yeah,
That was okay.
that scene was, um, but in the theatrical cut, that murder of that boy was never really mentioned again. In the work print, it's mentioned again.
Okay.
But it was never, he killed that boy with the branch in the woods, and then went home and, was ready to go trick or treating, and his mom was going off to shake her ass, and then he kills his stepdad, and then Judith, her boyfriend comes over and they refuse to take him trick or treating, and so he goes trick or treating by himself, comes back and bashes the boyfriend's head in with a aluminum bat in the kitchen, and then he goes upstairs and stabs Meredith or Judith. I don't know why I'm saying Meredith. What they say in that one 17 times. And then depending on which version you watch, there's all this footage of him at the at the institution, interacting with Sam Loomis and all this stuff.
Yeah,
which is cool. Well, I thought it was cool. The one thing that was, and then he just stops talking, of course. In the theatrical version, he just stops talking, and then I think it was in the work print where there was a scene where he was like yelling at his mom that he was ready to go home, and then she basically said, that's never going to happen, and then he basically said something along the lines of like, well, then I have nothing left to say, and then that was the last time he talked.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that. Yeah, there's I saw I don't think I saw the director's cut. I saw the work print and then I saw the theatrical. I don't recall seeing the director's cut.
The director's cut was pretty much the same as the theatrical. The only difference was the rape scene at the hospital when Michael escapes. So the escape is different from the theatrical. The theatrical version, Michael's being transported and he breaks free. In the director's cut, and then in the work print, he's in his room like making a mask, and the one orderly comes in with like his buddy or his cousin or whatever it was, and they bring in the new patient into the room, the female patient, and then they rape her. And Michael doesn't do anything until they start messing with his masks, and then he freaks out and kills him, and then just leaves basically.
Now, what did you think of his size? Because I mean, this is the first time Michael Myers is basically a giant. I mean, all the other films, and going back to the first one, he's kind of just a regular sized guy. And this one, it's Tyler Mane, the guy from, what did he play on the X-Men? Was it Sabretooth?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So you've got basically a wrestler playing the part of this character.
Yeah, and for the most part, I mean, except for the few scenes where he's at the hospital where he's towering over people, I don't think throughout the most of the rest of the movie you don't really get a sense of how big he was supposed to be. I mean, there's a few scenes, but not really. I don't.
The scene that probably one of my favorite scenes in this film, and it kind of reminded me of something Carpenter would have had in there. I thought it was really, really effective, and it's really quick. And I just remember not expecting it, and then when they had it on there, I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool. That's a cool scene. That's creepy." Was the scene where the kids are watching the horror movies. The kids that Laurie's babysitting, they're sitting on the couch watching the horror movies, and standing over them is Michael Myers behind the couch, just standing there. I thought that was so creepy. and it was such a it brought me back to the original actually because I actually thought Tyler Mane. I thought he was a little. I didn't like him being that tall. I wish they would have stuck with a regular sized guy, but I thought he portrayed Michael pretty well. I thought he did a good job, just the way he moved, and that one part where he walks into the house and there's the guy hanging with the pumpkin on his head, and he just kind of pushes him, and he kind of swings back and forth, and he seemed to really do a good job. I mean, better than a lot of the sequel actors who played Michael.
Well, yeah, and if you remember, at least in part one and part two, I don't know if it was the same for 4 and 5 and stuff, but they were stuntmen, but they weren't playing Michael Myers. They were playing, they were billed as the Shape.
Right.
So I mean, but the one thing that they always, whatever his name was that played him in the very first one, like when he would cock his head a little bit, like he was curious, but Tyler Mane did a lot of the motions and stuff of Michael Myers based off of what was in the first couple of movies, and a lot of the scenes too in the first remake, were for the most part identical to what was in not all of them, but some of them. There's the one scene where he kills what's his name, Bob or whatever, the boyfriend.
Yeah.
And he sticks the knife through him and it sticks into the wall, and then he backs
Right.
away and he cocks his head to the side and then goes in with the dressed as a ghost with the glasses on. And
yeah, they play that pretty much. A lot of that second half of that film, very very similar to Carpenter's film. They're just going back and kind of redoing a lot of those shots, those scenes. But yeah, that was. I thought he did a good job. The original guy was Nick Castle who played Michael Myers, and he was actually just he ended up becoming a director. I think he did The Last Starfighter, a few other ones, but he just was on set. He knew Carpenter from film school and said, "Hey, can I watch you direct? I want to be a director. That's what I'm working towards." And Carpenter's like, "Well, since you're going to be here, why don't you just put the mask on and be the killer?" And I thought Castle just did an incredible job of portraying him, and it was very, like you said, very very these, like the tilt of the head and just the way he moved. And I thought Tyler Mane kind of, he did seem to do a lot of that, bring a lot of that back, because a lot of the actors afterwards were kind of like generic horror movie bad guys, slasher killers, kind of just sort of copying whatever, Jason or all the other ones that were going on at the time. But yeah, the Tyler Mane did kind of bring it back to a little bit more of a little more stylized acting, so that was cool. I like the pool scene too. For some reason, that scene where he's chasing Laurie outside and she falls into the empty swimming pool, and there's all those leaves in it inside there, the fallen leaves because it's autumn, and he's just kind of walking around the pool stalking her. I thought that was pretty creepy. So that was a good scene. But yeah, I mean, it has its moments, but yeah, to me it just didn't. Zombie style is so different than the way he did all the backstory, really humanized Michael Myers, and it didn't work for me. I like the kind of the mystery and the creepiness of the original.
yeah, one of the other big differences between zombies and Carpenter's movies were the fact that you are made aware of pretty early on that Laurie is Michael's sister.
Yes. Yeah, he kept that. He kept that in there for sure. Yeah, and followed along that sort of the Halloween mythology, making him
Right.
relate, the relation.
And then the other thing, you know, that we saw with Zombies remake was the return of Danielle Harris. This time not as Jamie Lloyd, but rather as Annie Brackett.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took us this long to bring that up.
And unlike the originals, to where Annie was killed in the first Halloween in the original, she survived the attack in the remake. But really, well, depending on which version of the movie you watched, the remake, the end of the remake was the theatrical version, and actually the director's cut version too. Sort of like, he tracked Lori down, chased her into the pool, and then Dr. Loomis, who we didn't really talk about Dr. Loomis in the remake, but I didn't like the new Dr. Loomis. Was the one thing I didn't like. I didn't like him.
You didn't like Loomis
No, not in the remake.
in the remake?
No, in either one of
Yeah,
them.
I wasn't.
Very pretentious.
I didn't care for him either.
But
I didn't care.
but instead of Loomis shooting him at the end of the movie, Loomis shoots him in the pool a bunch of times, and then they get up and then end up back in the house for a while. And then the theatrical version and the director's cut, Laurie ends up with a gun, sitting on his chest, and it basically shoots him in the face a bunch of times, or just once, I guess. And then the work print, the difference is the end is completely different, and Michael is kind of similar to the end of part 4, where he's just gunned down by the police on the porch of the house.
Which I thought was a superior ending. I thought that was a better ending.
I did too. Yep. The way actually when I watched the work print, I'm surprised that they went with some of the other, because some of the scenes were a little different. But like the end was different, when I thought the end was better. Some of the music in the work print was different and it was better. But yeah, I thought it was better overall.
The one thing,
Go ahead.
going back to Loomis real quick, I think one of the biggest problems was with Loomis as a character was that because of the way Zombie sets it up and gives you everything you need to know about Michael Myers, Loomis's character he's basically there just to kind of help Laurie out. That's kind of why he's there. But in the original, because we know everything there is to know about Michael Myers, but in the original, there's so little is given to you about Michael Myers. He's such a, like, you knew he killed his sister, you knew he escaped, that's it, and then he's in town, he's kind of creeping around bushes and all that, but you don't know anything about him. And Loomis's character actually is the gives you the background for who Michael Myers is. Throughout the whole movie, you've got these scenes where Loomis is with the sheriff, and he's sitting there telling him, okay, this guy's pure evil. I watched him in this room, and he has these great dialogues of just going on and on about Michael Myers, where he just kind of builds up who this character is, because we don't know who he is. We don't know anything about him. We just know he's loose and he's stalking Jamie Lee Curtis. So, but with Zombies movie, we already know everything there is to know about him. So it kind of takes that. It does diminish the Loomis character, because there's no need for the background of any of that, because we watched it all. We watched the scenes in the sanitarium. We watched all of those different things, and so yeah, his character is a little bit less important this time around.
Right. And so similarly to the original 1 and 2. Zombie remade a second one, and that one picked off. Well, it picked off where the theatrical version left off at. Laurie sitting on his chest, shooting him in the face, and then it jumped to a year in the future. The one thing with the remake is that, and I know that Zombie kind of took the stance of, well, I already paid my homage to Carpenter in the first one, so I'm remaking this one, and I'm going to make my own movie. And so when you watch the second one, compare, if you watch the original 1 and 2, and then if you were to put in the remakes 1 and 2, the remake of 1 has a lot of similarities to the original. The second one has really no similarities at all to the original.
Oh yeah, none.
Loomis is nothing but an asshat living off of the fame of Michael Myers. He's got a book out. I think he actually had 2 books out. Or no, he had a book out in the first one, and then but in the second one he was doing another book or something. But anyway, the second one really went off on this weird. Which again, if you're a zombie fan, it's not, it's not really too out of the ordinary for Zombie to do. But he went on this whole thing where Michael's mother comes back as like a spirit or a ghost or whatever you want to say, and basically tells Michael that he needs to go back and find Laurie, and they need to come home together. And then they end up having this weird mental link, and then Laurie starts seeing visions of the mother, and there's this weird white horse, and it's really kind of an odd movie.
It is a very, very strange movie. Yeah, I remember when you and I saw that movie. It wasn't opening night, I don't think, but we saw it in the theater, and I was looking forward to it. I enjoyed Zombies first one enough to okay, give this one a shot too, but yeah, I was very, very disappointed. I thought actually the whole opening scene, there's actually a scene where they go to the hospital, and it turns out it's all a dream, but that whole sequence of bringing Laurie into the hospital, and then Michael being there, and then him chasing her through the hospital, I thought that was the best part of the whole movie. And then it just kind of, then it goes back to, you find out that's just a dream, and then it gets into such strange territory, and Michael, and going back to me being, the look of Michael Myers is, to me, what the monsters in these movies look like. It's, if I don't like that, if it's too weird and too different, then I typically won't like the film. And this one, he goes so extreme in the way he depicts him. I mean, he's basically dressed like a homeless man, and the iconic Michael Myers mask is now it's ripped to shreds. It's half of it's removed, and he's got a long beard underneath it, and the beard's hanging out one side of out of the hole of the mask, and he's wearing a hoodie. I mean, it's so over the top, the way he made him look. That was a big disappointment too.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that with, like you said, with you. I hated it, and then when it came out on video, I watched it and I liked it, and then I watched it again and I hated it, and then I watched it again and I liked it. And so every time I watch that movie, my feelings for it go back and forth. So,
well, you know what? That's funny, because the last time I saw it was with you, and I hated it. So I never gave it a second chance. Maybe I would, but yeah, until I do, I'm just going to stick with I hated it. Or I was extremely disappointed in it. But yeah, I read something or I heard something recently about it where, and this is another movie in these Halloween movies, you've got a lot of studio involvement because there's a lot of hands in the pie, a lot of people making money off these films. So you get a guy like Zombie who wants to be a bit more unique and do things with the characters and stuff that are a little bit more original. But you've got the studio, making sure that everybody, the paychecks are going to come in and it's not going to disappoint the fans. So they have a little bit of pushback. But I read somewhere that actually where Zombie was kind of going with this was similar to Halloween 4 with the Danielle Harris character becoming the killer, where actually Laurie was the killer, and every time we saw the kills on screen, that was all just in her mind, and or seeing Michael Myers, we were seeing it like through how she would have seen it in her mind, and it was all her. Going back to the very end of the film where she's in the shed and she puts on the mask, and then she's in the insane asylum and all of that. But obviously the theatrical cuts and I don't know if there's a director's cut or not, but the cut that was released is nothing like that. There's no implication that it was her that was the killer.
Yeah,
did you hear anything about that?
I never heard anything about that, but I think there is a director's cut. I don't know if I've ever seen it though.
Oh, okay.
I've watched enough alternate versions of the other movies this past month that, not that I'm burnt out. But
well,
yeah.
you have about 3 or 4 more weeks before Halloween, so you've got time to find that one.
Yep. Yeah. So, well, we did our best to cover. What did we see? 10 Halloween movies. Is that right? 7, 8. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 10 Halloween
10 of
movies. I think we have about 2 hours of footage that I'm gonna do a little bit of an edit, so there might be a director's cut of this podcast, and then the edited version. But
yeah, you'll have to have a couple. Yeah, make several different versions of this one, just in homage of the Halloween series.
Yeah, there was a couple of topics. I know you had a couple of things. I had a couple of things that we didn't really get to talk to. We didn't get to spend nearly as much time talking about a certain actress as I thought we would.
We didn't.
But,
that's criminal right there.
Yeah. But Mark, I appreciate you taking the time, spending it with me. This has been the first of the new format, and I think we did a good job. I think we killed it. I guess that kind of came out.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very nice pun.